The next day, Wednesday. What? As I woke up and tried to move, my head rubbed against something tough and then smacked into the doorknob. I raved in pain. What was going on? Did I fall asleep against the door? Was I more tired than I thought? I was glad I didn't die and all, but that was a failure in my eyes. Sleeping in an unnatural position made my whole body hurt. I wobbled over to my fully charged phone. It was 6 o'clock. That was early morning for me. Had loved to just go back to sleep, but I was too curious about the feast. After washing my face with hot water and putting my shoes on, I decided to take a peek. Outside, I saw Chimi standing there with a knife in her hand. I reflexively stepped back and tripped. What the hell was that? There was a woman standing before my room with a weapon. I had only caught a glimpse, but that was enough to conclude that I was dealing with a scene straight out of a horror movie. What could have prompted this? Did she suspect I was a wolf, or was she a wolf herself? She knocked on the door, making me squeal a bit. Would she kill me if I replied?
他のみんなの様子を見て回るから付き合ってほしいんだ。ちなみに私は現在凶器を所持してますが、ご信用につき心配なきよう。
Say that sooner.
あ、起きてた。大丈夫大丈夫。ほら、凶器はちょっと離れたところに置きました。
I hesitantly peeked through the metal slot and saw her hopping around, showing her empty hand. After meeting up with Chimi, we went around the dorm and woke students. They were all right. They had got ready, and we went to Sato's mansion, just 'cause it was so close. Yasumisu was still misty and unpleasant. I walked carefully, just like yesterday morning. I couldn't write off the possibility that a werewolf would jump out of the mist and tear me apart. I was walking ahead, dragging Chimi by the hand, careful about where I was going. If something happened, I had gotten eaten or something, Chimi could either fight or back or run away. Is someone there? Oh no, Sato-san. It's Fusashi and Chimi-chan. Where? Oh, there? We peered through the mist and a gloomy frown appeared.
Yeah, どうも。
Looks like the mansion was safe. Of course it's old, but well protected. Not even monsters can make it in, surely.
そっか。じゃあみんなで避難させてもらえます？
Why should I let you? This is Yasumizu's problem, not mine.
そっか、そうですよね。じゃあ休みずの問題解決のため、とっとと。
Huh? Wait, it's dangerous. We need to be in groups. Really, I was beginning to think that this guy was best described as an all bark no bite. Though prideful and vain, he wasn't as smart as he claimed to be, as shown by his inability to take charge of the feast. Also, his fussy attitude was probably just making up for his fear. It was entirely possible he was putting on air, and the mystery of Yasumisu, or rather Fujiyoshi, was actually scaring him. In a way, we went downhill and met up with the students. Even a familiar road can be scary.
だね。霧って不思議だ。これなら脱いでも怒られない。
Stop that, you fool. Haru Kishima was acting weird. Mochi definitely was expecting a retort from her. She didn't say anything, and her face was as pale as you could tell through the mist. Hanging her head, she was slightly shaking. Everyone else could see it, too, but no one chose to address it. Questions would quickly become suspicions, after all. Perhaps she was a wolf and did something horrific last night. As we all thought similar things, she suddenly collapsed to the ground. Are you alright?
触らないで。
Her hoarse scream shocked everyone.
兄
Haru-chan?
ちゃん、違う。ごめん。だけど、今は。
Yeah, I can understand if you're on edge. Be careful about where you walk. We then slowly down. Haru-chan, not touching anyone's hand, was at the rear end of the group. As we walked, tree stones drifted in and out of the visibility through the surrounding mist. Our vision was so limited, it felt like the world around us was changing with every step. A tunnel of trees, a path of putty fields, a stone platform, a concrete stairway. We walked between realms every passing second. I was still wondering about Haru-chan and what was on her mind. Was she afraid or wary? After descending for a bit, we arrived at the plaza.
みんな無事ね。
We met two people in front of the dining hall. Are the elders sleeping in? Ba-chan, still getting dressed, and she's not feeling too great right now. Let's check on those who are here yet. Come with me, Kyo. Why are you ordering me? 'Cause we might need some manpower. You come too. This was the first time he ordered me to do something, but it wasn't a situation where I could be happy about him relying on me. Yes, of course. He'd probably had a bad feeling, namely that he wouldn't be able to rely on someone ever again. As I passed by Cory-san, I heard her whisper.
あのね、安永、ちょっといい？
With what, Mom?
義継を探してほしいの。離れにいないようだから。
Everyone's probably had a bad feeling about this. The three of us guys checked the houses. Yasunaka-kun, Chimi, and Mochi walked around the settlement. They agreed to split up and start searching. The Missy village was silent, and I couldn't hear anyone chatting. I had seen these buildings from the outside, but it was my first time actually walking in. The shabby building built using the blackened planks were more or less buried in vegetation. Some were on the verge of collapse, and the way their frames just jolted from the mist reminded me of the caresses of giant beasts. I walked on a line between the grass and a footpath surely. I often heard something small jump in the grass. It's probably some bug or frog, but it made me flinch. Rikako-san lives here, right? Yeah, in the house. Why must she live in a place like this? If you don't know, there's no way we would. I'd guess it's the Migurama's orders. To my knowledge, she moved to Yasumizu of her own accord, and there's no need for her to be here in the first place. Maybe she knew the mist was coming and came to cast a spell or something to keep it away. That sure didn't work though. Takumi Moro? I don't mind you being disrespectful of me, but you should choose your words when talking about her. She's a legitimate Kamifujiyoshi family head. Like I care. This is Yamisu. She said it herself, didn't she? And the feast were all served on the same platter. Rikako-san? Rikako-san, are you alright? Apparently, Takumi-san didn't like the family or the four head families in general. Not that I thought about it, though she wasn't as disliked as Kiyonosuke. The villagers in the general weren't fond of Rikako. It seemed like a pretty obvious outcome, though. The settlement was organized. It was impossible for a member of one of the families who openly spurned them to form a good relationship with the locals. Rikako emerged before too long and was wearing her usual strange get-up. Didn't seem any different.
Meiko, 連れて行きませんと。
Moved on to the next house. It felt like she was urging me, so I woke up the girl. Meiko, it's morning. Well, I couldn't imagine Rikako-san raising her voice, while the other two probably didn't feel like they had to get involved. After a few locals' calls, she finally came out and was still half asleep.
Meiko, よかった。
Kiyo, take them to the dining hall. Come with me, Reiko-san.
はい。ごめんなさい。
Her sudden apology left me completely confused. Then she departed along the side, the other two leaving me alone with Takumi-san. Are you sure we should go on without Kiyonosuke-kun-san? He'd be useless anyways. I only brought him along in case it was the priestess that died. But now that I know who got killed, it could still be the old guy, right? Shut up. If old man Kanzo was around, he'd have woken up earlier than anyone and searched the length of Yasumizu 3 times by now. Sorry, his house is over there. I followed him in silence. I couldn't think of anything to say. The fact the door was unlocked made it clear that something wasn't right. The moment I opened, my nostrils were assaulted by a smell I had experienced yesterday. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Unlike Takumi-san, who was looking away and cursing, I did my best to burn the scene and witness in my memory. I felt like to avert my eyes would be disrespectful. The body was more intact than Mamima-san and Himishisho-san. That made it much easier to become painfully aware of the fact that this was a human, an intelligent life form, who was with us yesterday like it was no big deal. There was one problem, though. The part of the body that used to be the head was completely destroyed. There was no part of the head left untouched. It was obviously the result of the relentless, heavy blood attacks. Everything above the neck was just strange, flat, mass, shattered, skull fragments, white and red organic matter. Compared to it, everything else was largely unharmed. The old-looking clothing and the unexpected robust chest for someone his age were all the proof needed to know that this was the body of Kanzo Makishima-san. Well, clean it up. What else? Please wait a bit. What are you gonna do? Find out as much as I can. So we had no idea when we could get out of here. Protecting the scene of the crime when an official investigation meant we had to leave the body to rot here, and we couldn't just do that. Considering the horrible state it was in, the village probably wanted to take care of it their way as soon as possible. How much I could do to stop that. Thus, I did my duty as someone without obligations. this was completely unlike the other ones from yesterday. While those two were destroyed completely, this one was damaged was focused on the head. The weapon clearly wasn't sharp. They had used something blunt. Skin was on the face was torn and was not sliced apart. The caused by a repeated blunt attack. It wasn't my job to picture whether this was profound grudge in this. The only clear thing is that the wolves killed him using something blunt, not fangs or claws. It's obviously done with dedicated intent. At the very least, the entity that made this corpse wasn't the same as the one that made the ones from yesterday. It made sense if they were separated and assumed that yesterday was the corruption and today was the wolves. But the thing I'd seen when I was walking around at night that time had appeared to be the appearance of the wolves, or rather, a werewolf. If the werewolf were the one bringing the corruption, the tell all this was based on would make even less sense. If the corruption was a great lord, Shinani's, the mountain god's punishment, it'd be weird for it to be delivered by the wolves. Holding back my nausea, I looked back at the corpse. Then I rolled back at my sleeves and reached for the destroyed head. Hey, what are you doing? I'm pretty sure I'm wrong, but still, have a look. Decapitation meant body doubles. Mystery Writing 101. If someone bought in and killed a person with a similar build to Kanzoshi's, then left him here, his death could easily be faked. Did Kanzo-san have a silver-capped tooth in his lower jaw? No, he didn't. His voice was strangely forced. I looked at him and realized he was kind of pale. I might have overdone it. Still, I couldn't be soft in this situation. He was proud that he didn't need any crowns or anything, despite being over 60. Why did you find one? No, I only asked to prevent any directions. It was a healthy set of teeth. What the hell? The lower jaw was mostly intact, while the upper one was destroyed during the rest of the head. Despite that, I saw a hint of the old man in the eyebrow, in the dark hair, the streak of gray in them. It's pretty clear that one and only Kanzo, it was pointless to keep thinking about it the way he was injured. My hands were all messy. I'd have to wash them later. The corpse aside, Kanzoshi was lying on some thin bedding, and there was no sign of a struggle. He was either instantly killed by the first attack or knocked out. Still, it wasn't a corpse that was easy to make. The situation here was particular. One point I found curious was the fact that Kanzoshi surely obeyed the shelter law and locked himself in. However, the lock was still perfectly intact, so logically speaking, Kanzo had opened the door and let the culprit in. There's no sign of resistance. However, if this was a normal killing by the standards of the feast, then there was definitely made possible by something unnatural. Back to the situation at hand. The futon and everything around it were bloody. Obviously, there was another strange thing about the crime scene. Some spots were really wet and clearly not made because of the mess. It's like the murder purposely spread some water here. Were they trying to wash away the blood spatter on them? But there was no point in doing it in front of the body. The footprints were faded. They were trying to cover their tracks, but they were still pretty visible though. It's more like they were put on bloody footprints on a futon, and that was already wet. The shape of the prints told me that they were made made by Westerner shoes, but Japanese clogs. They were just long oval resentments of the Zora sandals. There weren't many of them, though most of the blood was absorbed by the futon. But from what I had, I could tell there was only one type of footprint. Find out anything? Nothing special. Thought so. You don't specialize in this, do you? Sadly, no. All I knew was the culprit was a dangerous human. As I washed my hands, Takumi-san removed the sliding door and put Kanzo-san's remains on it. He covered his destroyed face with a nearby hand towel and prepared to carry it. You take the other side. Got it. He lifted it up, and yeah, it was definitely a job for two people. We went out into the mist. Are we throwing him into Sanra Naga? That's what Bachan would want, because he'd be corrupt if we don't. Yeah. A voice devoid of life. I couldn't call out to him. Pushing him any further was dangerous. I could tell by the air about him. It's my fault. Why? 'Cause I messed up in the feast. That was entirely possible, that disproven that he was aware of it himself. I would have said that it felt wrong. I don't know much, but I think you were trying to do your best. But what's the point if I messed up like this? Then you need to make up for it. I think you'll have to be the one who leads Yasumizu now. I can't. Well, I couldn't either. It was just an outsider, so I had no idea how to console him. Feeling powerless, we approached the dining hall. We passed by and go straight for the graveyard. Tayama Aki-san had came out. She was in maids of prayer. Karu Obi-san was standing next to her. Rikako was covering Meiko's eyes. Haru-chan, Kanzo-san, actual granddaughter, was watching grandfather's corpse with intense expression. It probably wasn't good to make any assumptions here. I felt like her expression was full not of unbearable sorrow but of anger, hatred, and disgust. I'd never seen them have a nice chat, so I wouldn't have been surprised if they didn't see eye to eye. But still, I'd like it if she had made a different expression, if only for this moment. I could only think that because I, as an outsider, didn't know. It wasn't good to make assumptions. Why was I in this position? Just how much could I have learned in my position? As it turned out, I was still underestimating the situation.
Yoshi-kunがどこにもいない。
We met Jimmy on the way to the graveyard. She and two high school guys were still searching, but the mess made it extremely difficult. We told her we'd join once we buried Konzo. The graveyard wasn't that far. Yasumizu wasn't very big. I'd completely forgotten about him. He was alright too, huh? I had no idea why, but he was looking at us, clapping and laughing. That meant that Yoshitsugu Oribi-kun was the only one who hadn't seen yet. I was told there'd be only one. The wolves were supposed to be killed one person per night. Not saying a word, I hurried to finish the job. That led us to find him early. Yoshitsugu was the shortest path to the cliff in the grass, the graveyard, though Takumi-san had only noticed him by chance. That was how deep in the grass he was. How many pieces of him were there left? It reeked of death too. It was mixed of the smell of trampled grass and a strange beastly odor. Maybe not all the blood around here was his. Unlike Konzo, he had left clear but tough battle and intense pain. Yoshi, you had guts. Takumi-san's voice was shaking. He picked up a soccer ball-sized object. Half-eaten and basically a shadow of what it used to be, it clenched its teeth and even in death. Can I? Takumi-san gave it Yoshitsugi's head to me and put my finger in its mouth. I was curious about what was stuck in here. What I found was a clump of beastly fur. He literally fought tooth and nail, resisting until the very end. Resisting what? Obviously, the being that brought the corruption. It didn't take long for the news of Orobi's death to spread across the village. I heard that the pain of losing one child was beyond any description. Even so, Koriri Oribe-san broke down so badly it felt abnormal. The mild-mannered woman became a mad beast. We had to band up to keep her from running to where we found. We'd already gathered it up and thrown it into Sanranaga. After all, Takumi-san kept a tuft of the boy's hair I gave. She instantly put it in her mouth. Though her wailing and choking, she did her best to chew and swallow it. It wrenched a gloomy and unbearable sight, though it might have been an act born of ultimately really love. Whatever the case, no matter the shape, it was too late to try and bring her child back into her self. Not to mention absurd and pointless. That was how it looked in my eyes. Let's begin the feast. We gotta do something about the one who killed the old man and Yoshi. His words got the attention of basically everyone, but they didn't reach the sobbing mother and her older son. Yoshitsugu-kun. Why did he have to go against the laws? His efforts, death had only worked to corner not only just his mother, but everyone else here. It was useless. He'd gotten some weird fur for us. No one, not even me, had any doubts about what we were dealing with here. A situation where everyone was desperate, acted on their own accord, and didn't know how to use their lives well, was basically the worst. And apparently the line of thinking had foreshadowed the turn of events. Why was everyone in a hurry to do the worst thing possible? Chimi, Sara wa chika mochi komoshida Takumi and I went to search for Haru. Kori-san showed no signs of calming down. Kiyonosuke refused to come and argued that it could be bad if there wasn't enough manpower around the dining hall. It wasn't unlikely that some fur uncovered murder, or Haru-chan's kidnapper was still around. To prevent any surprise attacks or accidents we split into pairs. We were given a hoe and a sickle for self-defense. Shout if something happens, loud enough where we can hear you, but low enough that others can't. Alright, let's go. The skirt we made the search harder for him, so he changed into his school uniform. It wasn't cut out for the job either, but he had no choice, no other clothes, or at least it was better than a one-piece dress. He seemed to enjoy wearing girls' clothing, so changing into the uniform was probably his way of showing that he was serious about this. He kept his easygoing tone of voice, but it felt like there was a gravity in his eyes, too.
はるちゃん
Haru-chan! We walked around, shouting until our throats became dry. He checked every bush, all the patches of tall grass. We even searched water around the putty fields, but it didn't feel like we were getting any closer. What do you think happened to her?
わからん。自分のじっちゃんが死んでショックだったのかも。
No, before that. She's been acting weird since this morning.
そうだっけ
Is she really
潔癖
fast what? A clear freak. A clean freak. Hates anything dirty. I think I saw hints of that ever since we first met.
というか、休みずで一番怖がりなんだよね、はるちゃん。
Scaredy cat?
昔話の汚れとか、昔からすごく怖がってたし、ある意味、汚れるのを嫌がってたのかも。
I see. Fear based on superstition. That made sense, but why had it suddenly gotten worse? What happened last night?
だから、はるちゃんが狼でも、誰も殺したりできないと思うんだな。
Is that what you think?
はるちゃんが狼かどうかは別として、もし狼でも無理だろうって言っておる。
How pedant. That's not
僕
very
自
like
身の
you.
ことじゃないからね。
I don't want to try and get a read on you. I just want to hear your ideas or what's going on with Haru-chan right now.
何を疑ってるのか僕には分からんけど、僕の中では、はるちゃんはやっすんと同じか、それ以上に大事なもので、それ以外何にも大事じゃないんだよね。だからとっとと探そうよ。
Good point. But no matter how hard we searched, we saw no signs of her. She could have been hiding somewhere. I was beginning to entertain another idea. What if she ran away? Acts knowing everyone who would deny the idea. When the mist comes, Yasumisu is connected to Yomi. Ba-chan's words, so anyone trying to escape would just end up
ま
there.
ああと単純に危ないよね。山
All that considered, if there was something that drive her to escape from the village, what would it be? Everyone fell silent. They couldn't even imagine it. It was like their brains had stopped working. She actually wandered out into danger. Then it wasted too much time searching for her in the next village. I had to hurry, so I didn't hesitate to use some big assumptions that bordered on chicanery. What if she no longer trusted the village or the people here? What do you mean? She might have seen something at night or early morning or come to some sort of realization. For example, what if she found out that someone she knows well is a wolf who killed people like it was no big deal? Everyone gasped. She's young, so she's still pretty unstable. Since Yasumisu was so small, it wouldn't be strange if she felt like she was lost in her place if someone betrayed her. The girl seemed pretty emotional, so it makes sense that she jumped straight and run away.
説得力あるな。
But then what do we do? That was the thought of someone from
僕は汚れても
Yasumizu.
いいから、はるちゃんを探しに行く。
That was the thought of someone from Yasumizu who had a few screws loose. In a ways, I'm an outsider. Not exactly adverse to leaving in a way, so I'll look forward
だ
to.
からそれ、止めるって言ったよね。
Don't worry, I'll head back at the moment if it gets dangerous. She definitely won't head into Saranaga's direction, so I'll focus on the path to the school. Also, adults shouldn't turn their backs on children, right?
ハッサン、反論しようがないよ、そんなの。
Of course, it's possible that she's still in Yasumizu, so you two keep a search on for here. Leave it to me.
危なかったら絶対逃げてよ。ハッサン、さっき言ってた話さ。
What do you mean?
ハルちゃんが何かを見たから誰も信じなくなって逃げたって話。
What about
多
it?
分本当じゃないよね。
Who knows? I was just raising the possibility. It's likely, though, isn't
例え
it?
ば僕やヤッスンが牙とか生やしてうろついてるのを見たとか。
That's a possibility, too.
なんていうかそうじゃない気がする。
Is that just your intuition talking?
そう、ただの勘だけど、それで言えばこの読み意味の宴ってさ、そういう方法で狼を見つけらんないようにできてる気がする。
Hmm? You can't see them at night because you can't walk outside. You can't stay gathered in one place or watch each other. You can't call the police, so there's can't be any investigation. Since everything is covered in mist, things can happen without anyone realizing. And that's why you can't get that sort of solid proof. How could the players send people to hang out without the slightest bit of real evidence? They ignore the weird guardian powers. It's all quabble. Emotional arguments, connections, popularity, basically the
よ
power of
くわからんけ
communication.
ど、そんな感じでちゃんとできてるんじゃない？
Nothing was certain. They were put in a dangerous argument, with their only weapon being their eloquence. It was a feast of doubting, hurting, and eventually killing one another. If there was such malice behind this, then Chikamochi had a point. Are you a detective or something?
いやー、それは休んだな。もしかしたらやつはもういろいろわかってるかもしれないぞ。
I'd have to talk to him then. We had arrived at the mountain pass, separating Yasumisu from the rest of the world. The large stones at the sides were like torii without a top. They might have had religious significance. There's no rules against stepping beyond here, right?
宴から逃げちゃダメだっていうのはあるけどね。
We were going out to find Haru-chan, so we were good. Ignoring the fact that Haru-chan was breaking the law, we passed between the stones. Soon we had to stop. The path was blocked by a landslide. According to Mochi, desperately being pretty rocky, the ground in this area was strangely fragile. There had been some pretty bad rain last night, hadn't there? If there was related to the mist appearance, it wasn't unlikely that we had both gotten mist and this landslide at the same time. Despite that, this felt like it was a bit too inconvenient. I had to consider the possibility that people in the settlement above blocked the road to keep the Yomi Bito from getting through. There was something way more important. We found footprints in the still damp mud. It's proof that she passed through here. They disappeared into a small cliff that only reached up to my shoulders. She had to climb up.
急ごう。
Let's hurry. Yeah. The terms virgin forest was used to describe the forests that were still untouched by mankind. Many of the cedar here looked imported, so that term probably didn't apply to this one. However, it was intended whatsoever, so the words natural or undeveloped definitely worked. There were many fern saplings on the surface. It certainly didn't feel like a place humans were welcome. For better or worse, the new ferns seemed firmly trapped.
こっちだ。
Be careful, she got lost on the. Uh, be careful, she got lost on this road, after all.
はるちゃん
Should you really be shouting like that?
山の基本。獣は声で逃げる。
Oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about the very real threat of wild animals. I lost myself in the mood and became kind of embarrassed.
返
Haru-chan!
事して
Shouting over and over, we kept moving forward. She tried to follow the path, but all the cliffs and boulders in the way made her stray from it. 10 minutes later, we lost all sense of direction. This place really was dangerous. Could we really find her? Even if we did, wouldn't it be too late? I was just reminded of the cruel fate. Were we about to lose yet another life? As my thoughts turned to this very real possibility, I heard some weak
はるちゃん
weeping.
もっち来ないで
Are you alright?
お願い追ってこないで
I had a bad feeling about this. Something really bad might have happened
待
to
って
her.
て
Hey, wait. Chikamochi went after the voice with no hesitation. His body was quickly buried under the
ハッサン
plants.
手を貸して
His lack of hesitation felt dangerous in a way. Was he just imagining it? Anyways, I went after him and quickly caught up.
痛いよ
She was buried under all the
足だ
greenery.
ね
I walked up. Man, this was pretty bad. Her leg was all covered in blood. Her shoe, her foot were pierced by a sapling that was broken right at the bottom. She stepped on this. Can we break
無
it
理
off?
め抜くしかない
Thou open the
血止
wound.
め草と毒ダミが生えてるあれで傷塞ごう
You can do that?
のさとは薬作ってた家だかんね
First, I heard of that, but I had no choice but to believe him. She resisted verbally, but was too tired and weakened to do so physically. I picked up her and doing this my best to ignore her wailing. Quickly took care of her wounds and used a handkerchief to stop the
戻
bleeding.
ろうハッサン
Of course, you sure you don't want to do it though?
なんだかな単に体格の問題さ
I thought of saying that Haru-chan would prefer him, but she was barely conscious thinking to the pain. We didn't have time to waste on sentimental. Lead the way. One person is enough for one day.
戻るだけなら余裕ただやっぱり山を抜けるのは無謀っぽい
Agreed. Haru-chan, I'm so glad you're
あ
alright.
んま無事じゃない匠にタイバー呼んで傷の手当てしなきゃ
Got it. Our return caused quite a commotion. By the time things had begun to calm down, it was way past noon. Haru escaped attempt distracted everyone, but none of the problems were actually solved. Konzo was killed by the wolves, while Yoshitsugu was taken by the corruption. Death was actually problematic. Each meaningless death was yet another obstacle against resolving the feast. Even they hung someone during the day, it wouldn't guaranteed that one would be one less wolf. It was way more likely that they would get rid of an innocent. Even worse, the wolves in the group would most likely try to leverage the hanging their favor. They claimed to be innocent while casting doubt and blame on other survivors. To win, the humans needed to do their best to see through trickery and identify the wolves. That was how I saw it. In a ways, I was the one who had the least info here. With that all in mind, all humans who died by breaking the rules were actually doing the wolves a favor. If she actually disappeared, I'd have said the same thing about Haru, assuming she was a human in a way. Perhaps someone encouraged them to break the rules. If that's the case, the wolves were ruthless, knew the rules well, and were steadily advancing towards a complete victory. That'd be someone influential, a player who's invaluable to
肝臓
humans.
じいちゃんあるいはヤスくん
Just as we feared yesterday, the wolves had silenced one of the most important people in the feast. It's hard to believe they had chosen him because they were scum or because they didn't like him. The situation was really bad. Another thing to note was that Yoshitsugu Orobi's death greatly affected Kori-san, who was responsible for everyone's meals.
皆さん、お疲れ様で。
When she tried to give us some tea, we returned from searching. Her face was pale and she was shaking like she had a seizure. Despite her attempt to carry on as normal, Kobashi was in pieces. Takumi-san should have been supporting her, but it was all gloomy, hanging around his head. Chimi had to lead Kori-san back to her room. However, it was nearly time to do the unedible. I recall you saying that you should start today's feast. Now as good a time as any, don't you think? Kiyonosuke addressed the downhearted people gathered in the dining hall. And we will have the feast in the next one. Thanks for watching.